Well, hi folks, this is Bear Wiseman, and I'm here today with Tuomas Holopainen from Nightwish, among other projects, of course. And for the first time, we're getting to talk off the record, so to speak. So, first of all, in a couple of days, you're going to be at the pre listening session for Yesterwynde, followed by all of your interviews. Just to get the generic question out of the way first, how are you feeling just as release date's slowly approaching and you're getting into all the promo and all that?
It's been a wonderful journey spending the last 3.5 years with these 12 songs. And now it's coming to an end when the whole world gets to hear them. So it's always a bit of a bittersweet feeling because it's such an immersive and intimate experience to get an album done. But overall, I feel so relieved. I feel happy that she's out into the world soon. And yeah, I was gonna say like interesting to hear what the people will think about the album, but I don't really care. For me, the most important thing is that the other band members are happy and everybody is. So everything that follows is just a bonus.
As we've already said, you've come a long way to get to this album, so I hope you don't mind if we go back a little bit further even. We're here during this Nightwish fan meetup, and so I started looking into the band's formation, and I understood that you had called the type of music you wanted to make this kind of campfire music. And when I think of campfires and the music that happens around them, I think of, fellowship and stories and kind of like the Edie Maru and Patrick Rothfuss's novels. So is that very different from the vision you had back then, or do you think you're returning to that more campfire sound these days?
Back in the days when I was in high school, I played in a couple of metal bands, pretty extreme metal as well, like Dark Woods, Mighty Throat, and Nothingness Growth. There was one called Dismal Silence, so I just wanted to do something in contrast with those. And back then I was a big fan already of acoustic music. And a big influence for me was an album called Kveldsanger by Ulver, the Norwegian band, which was completely acoustic. And I thought that this is so cool. I want to try to do something similar. So then Tarja came along, Empu came along. We ended up doing the first demo under the name Nightwish. And it was a demo of 3 songs. And even though it was a really intriguing concept, I immediately realized that our hands are pretty tied when you only have an acoustic guitar and a piano and a female voice. I mean, we were really young back then. We had a metal band background. There was a lot of ambition, like artistically, musically. So we just thought, what the hell? Let's get a drummer, let's get an electric guitar and a bassist and go full force.
You kind of answered my next question there. So, do you remember anything really critically important that you learned in those first few years, kind of forming the band and writing Angels Fall First, getting signed?
Everything back then was so exciting and new. I mean, you're 19 years old, the debut album hits the charts, suddenly you are touring in Europe, and you get the fan base, you meet the fans, you sense the enthusiasm. That was all that mattered to me at the time. And just writing those songs, playing them live, touring the world with your best mates. I mean, I didn't really care about anything else. It was all Nightwish for me. And I should have, you know, maybe read through the contracts that we signed, but we just didn't care. And it's a two-edged sword. I mean, it's wonderful to have that naivety and passion just for music and not care about any numbers or money or any of that nonsense. But looking back, I wish there was somebody there to maybe guide us a little bit, to tell what this whole industry is about. Um, when the success comes, how to deal with that, how to deal with fans, you know, what's actually in the contract. So that's something, looking back, I hope that the record label would have given us.
Hmm.
But other than that, I still think it's a net positive because here we are after 28 years.
Well, I suppose you may have kind of already answered this, but if you could go back and give yourself some advice, would it have just been to read more contracts and that sort of thing, or?
Uh, no, I wouldn't have changed anything because it's the old cliche that all the mistakes you do, everything you do in life, they teach you, and then you try to learn, and then you take a next turn. And everything that's happened tonight, which I wouldn't change a thing, I wouldn't do anything differently because it has brought us to this place, which is a really good place to be. We have 10 albums done, super proud of all of them, really proud of all the members, present and past. So, no, no regrets, wouldn't do anything differently.
I think that's a really good attitude to have. That you learn from your mistakes, and it helps make you who you are.
That's the key part.
Mm,
I mean, don't be dismissive about them. You have to learn, but
mm,
that's what basically life is about.
yes.
Hmm.
Well, I noticed you cited bands like The Third and the Mortal, Theater of Tragedy, and The Gathering as big influences on why you wanted to have a female vocalist, and I was just curious if you happened to see that those three singers did a tour together. Did you happen to catch any of those shows when the Sirens were performing?
Once, that was in the summer of 2015. We had a show in Trondheim, and the Sirens performed just before us. And that's one of the most memorable days of my life because the band The Third and the Mortal is why Nightwish exists, basically. Their album Tears Laid in Earth is still my all time number one album.
Wow.
And in 2015, they had quit like 20 years earlier already. And the organizer of that show brought them together and, as a surprise to me, brought the whole band in their original lineup to the backstage a couple of hours before our show. And I can't find words how much that fan meeting meant to me. I mean, this band, this album that I adore so much, and that has really changed my life, to be honest. To meet those people, and they were so lovely, all of them. Get that album signed, and it was just here I am talking about it, feeling a bit emotional. So,
Hmm. That makes perfect
mm,
sense. And in that sense, that leads nicely into this. Like, I'm endlessly fascinated by following even the stories of people and how art inspires art. And, the way those bands inspired you. And then Nightwish went on to inspire, Epica and Delane and, like, literally every other symphonic metal band these days.
mm.
And, not to mention poetry, the paintings, the stories, and all of that. So, like, how does it feel to you to be kind of like such a big part of that flow of inspiration that goes all the way around the world and comes right back to your hometown?
You just put it really beautifully. That's how art works. You get excited and inspired about stuff that you read or hear or experience in life, and then when you create stuff yourself, you are influenced by all of that, and it comes out. Maybe the most common question that I get is, where do you get your inspiration from? How do you create the songs? And I can't answer that. It's like a flowing stream of something that comes through my brain and these fingers. And all the stuff that has gone into this system throughout my whole life, whether it was Disney comics when I was really young, or the first time I read The Lord of the Rings, first time I heard Walking in the Air or Metallica song. I mean, that's just how art works. And then you channel your stuff, try to put your own fingerprint into the art, try not to copy anybody, but stay honest to the art. That's pretty much it. And if it happens that somebody takes inspiration from us, like you mentioned, some bands, that's the ultimate compliment.
Mm,
I mean, I've had my heroes. We didn't invent symphonic metal, that already was a thing before us. We elevated to a different level, sure, but we had our heroes as well.
mm. Well, speaking of inspirations, I've also been doing some little interviews with some of the fans at this meetup and hearing some of the stories of how Nightwish has like helped them or changed their lives or things. And as I was doing these interviews, I started to realize that Nightwish, even for me, is the only band that felt like it was somehow following along with my life as I was going, because I started out as this sort of lonely, emo-ish, gothy kind of like fantasy loving
Mm.
kid when I was 15, and I was quite Christian, I think. And then over time, that belief system fell apart for me, and then I was very atheist for a while, and then I moved on to reconnecting with kind of myself and the earth and nature and the space around me and the world I live in. And so I don't know what your
Mm.
journey personally has been, but of course, the music always felt like it followed along very nicely with
Mm.
my kind of own just spiritual journey, I would say, or emotional, or however you want to put it. But
Music for me is self exploration at
yeah.
its core, and every single album that we have done reflects that guy in that certain time and place. It absolutely does, and that's the thing that I'm most proud of about this band. It's always stayed honest to its core.
Mm.
And naturally, I'm not the same person I was 28 years ago when I did the songs for the first demo. But I look back at those songs and I just feel proud and amused. And there's a part of me that still misses that kid that wrote those songs. But then again, that's life. It's all about evolution and going forward.
Well, so you've been referring to these latest three albums, including Yesterwynde, as a trilogy that I would say, like, my interpretation of that would be that they're kind of like love letters to the planet and our unique and rare chance in our moment that we have to live
Mm.
on it. So if those are a trilogy, like, do you find any other, like, I don't think, as far as I understood, you intended them to be a trilogy when you wrote them,
No.
but they kind of felt like it in hindsight. So do you feel like with the older albums as well, there are any kind of similar groupings among them, or is it a very different feeling with these newer albums than with the older ones?
Uh, I think the albums before this trilogy they all stand individually. There's not that kind of pattern in the older albums. The first seven ones that we did are much more personal, more fantastical, um, whereas these latest three are like you said, they are a love letter to planet Earth and to the magic of reality. Um, when we did Endless Forms Most Beautiful, we just thought that this would be it. But after finishing that album, all of us felt that there's still so many stories to be told around this subject matter. So we decided to do Human Nature. After that, same thing. There are still some songs, so let's do one more and close the trilogy. Works beautifully.
I think I wouldn't normally ask this from people because I think people don't usually necessarily think about it too much, but you have kind of a feeling about you that you do ponder the deeper nature of things, what it is to be like alive and a part of this world and that sort of thing. So if you were to give a kind of idea of what life means to you, what do you think that might be?
Interesting you should ask, because that has always been a really, really easy question for me since I was a kid. And there's actually a song on the upcoming album that deals with this thought called Something Whispered Follow Me. It's all about the meaning of life. And the simple answer is that it's something different for everybody. There is no one answer to that massive question. You have to make your own reality. You have to find your own passion, follow it, try to do something meaningful, and leave the planet in a better state than when you found it. I think that really is the
Hmm.
meaning of life.
The
But
meaning of life is to live it, sort of.
live it, yes. I've been evangelizing this thought about passion. Find at least one passion that when you wake up in the morning, you think about it, that it's like, yes, this is going to be a wonderful day. For me, for the longest part of my life, it has been music, writing songs. But it can be whatever you want: journalism, art, uh, being a hermit in the woods, whatever really makes your life worthwhile. Find that and follow that. Something will whisper, follow me at some point. You just have to follow that then.
I love
And
that.
also, I want to emphasize that from my own experience, happiness can be found through doing something meaningful. And I'm just so happy with what we have been able to achieve with Nightwish and some other music projects as well throughout all these decades. It's been my shout into the wind, so to say. Uh, yes, and hopefully many decades to come still.
Well, speaking of kind of inspirations and things like that, what's your just favorite thing about each of your band members these days, and like how do they inspire you?
Yeah, I mentioned that they are the only other people in the world that I think about when I'm writing songs, because it's really important that they would be inspired about the stuff as well. Um, I've known Empu for more than 30 years, and he's just an incredible persona in the way that everything's always good with him. He's the easiest going band member there is. He does his job, his guitar playing as professionally as anybody, but other than that, it's always like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm fine. He's so carefree. Almost envious about that because I worry about stuff constantly. So to get into his mind every now and then would be something else. But
A
yeah,
vacation, you mean?
vacation. Yeah, he's a wonderful character. Same goes with Troy. He's just the most positive guy in the world. Incredible musician. Every time he enters the room is filled with light and happiness, and comedy.
I remember from the Auri interviews him just
Yeah,
teasing me the whole time.
yeah. He has definitely realized something thorough about life. He's, yeah, wonderful. Floor is the best in the world in what she does. Really passionate about music. Really understands the core of Nightwish. And for me as a songwriter, that's such a relief because I know that whatever I do, whatever I want her to do, she is able to do. And a good example of this was when we recorded her vocals for this new album. We hadn't rehearsed once because we didn't have a chance. And we went to her home studio in Sweden. We had reserved 2 weeks for the recordings, and she was done in 6 days. Incredible, just incredible in what she does. Then Kaitsu, again, the most amiable guy there is. I think he has like 25 guests on every single show we do, and he doesn't know half of them, but he's, yeah, everybody's his friend. So easy to be with. Pro musician, of course, obviously, with a drummer, but just a fantastic guy. And the same goes with Yukkis. I mean, I've never ever seen him angry or even agitated. He's just like, yeah, things will be okay. Let's talk about this, and yeah, and just a ground. Is that a word? Grounding personality.
Yeah.
When you feel a bit agitated yourself, Yukkis comes to, okay, and a great bass player, of course. So lucky to be surrounded by these wonderful people. I really am.
I suppose in that sense, has there been anything then, like you've got this awesome team with you and all of that, you've been working on this third part of this trilogy. Has anything really thrown you off or surprised you on this new album that, oh, like I never expected things would go this way?
I don't think so. Again, with this album, as with all the previous ones, there are some songs that kind of stand out that you didn't expect them to stand out. I mean, like for example, "The Children of Ata" is a song that felt like this has got some potential, but I don't know during the songwriting process. Now, when the song is finished and mixed, it's one of the absolute highlights on the album, which we never saw coming. So this happens on every album. But other than that, can't think of anything.
Hmm. Well, and you also have other projects. You have Auri, you have Darkwoods, My Betrothed, and um, how do you find that these other projects, even your solo album like The Life and Times of Scrooge, that like do they balance out your creativity and give different like sorts of outlets than you would get with Nightwish, or how do they kind of fit into your creative spirit, I guess?
Exactly how you just put it. That's they complement each other. Nightwish is my brainchild, which I couldn't do alone. Uh, Ari is completely divided between us three, Johanna, Troy, and me. And then Dark Woods, My Betrothed is just something that I play my parts on top of something that everybody else has created. So very different things. And then the solo, the Scrooge album, it was just a thing that needed to come out of my system, and there's just wasn't proper to do it with Nightwish because the other members of the band don't really have that kind of relationship with Scrooge as I do. So I don't think they would have found the theme of the album quite so interesting. That's why.
But regarding that album, it's just like my passion and the thing that I've always done has been fantasy stories. I've been writing fantasy since I was 13, and what I have always dreamed of is to have stories be more multimedia. Like I always wanted, video games get scores, movies get scores. Why could my stories not have scores? And so, as far as I understand, or at least in my experience, The Life
Hmm.
and Times of Scrooge is the only like kind of score that's written for a book. So, I
Hmm.
guess yeah. Do you think that that's something that you would do again, like to do a kind of soundtrack to a book or something like that?
I absolutely would. Yes, I'm a huge fantasy literature freak as well. Well, I like thrillers as well and all kinds of books. I just love books, and that's something that I might want to explore in the future. With what kind of format, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, very intriguing. There was a period about 10 years ago, all I would read was nonfiction for some reason. So I just devoured everything from Christopher Hitchens, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Richard Dawkins, Esko Valtaoja. And I think they had a big influence on the Nightwish music as well. But then I found fiction again a few years ago, and I've been on a fantasy binge ever since. So I think that will have something to say for what we create in the future.
Incredible. Well, you've had the opportunity to meet some of your kind of favorite artists as well, like Don Rosa, and I think I've heard that you and Pat Rothfuss have at least like met online, if not in person.
Yeah, we have changed a few emails. I've
Hmm.
never met him personally,
Hmm.
but yes, and I've met Robin Hobb a few times. So
She's lovely. We met her at Worldcon when she was here. She was a lot of fun.
she's such a lovely lady. We just emailed yesterday actually about a certain thing, and yeah, she's one of the best ever for me. I mean, there's Tolkien, there's Joe Abercrombie, there's Robin Hobb, Neil Gaiman, Patrick Rothfuss,
Hmm.
Tove Jansson, of course.
Of course.
So to meet these heroes of mine is just it's a bit controversial, but just really happy to have met them.
Hmm. But do you find that you're able to connect very easily with them since you sort of have perhaps similar things that inspire you or make you tick? Or is it always kind of just a mixed bag?
Yeah, what I meant by controversy was that what if those idols of yours turn out to be something that you didn't expect them to be?
Hmm.
That would be devastating. And at least so far, all the heroes that I've met, Don Rosa, Robin Hobb, Richard Dawkins, Escobar, they have been just lovely, all of
Hmm.
them. But
Uh,
I like to keep my distance. Like, for example, I got invited to meet Hans Zimmer a couple of times, and I was like, he's such a massive hero to me. I'm not sure if I'm up for it right now. So, mm.
Oh, I understand. I think I came that way to Finland and I didn't realize how kind of cold Finnish people are, just kind of like normally.
Mm,
And it was very much a shock to me. And so I thought, I don't want to meet anyone that I love. And that's why nobody heard of me as a journalist for years and years and years,
right,
because I just didn't want to. I wanted to hear the art and appreciate it without, someone being rude or something and then totally crushing me.
right, exactly.
Well, is there anyone then in that sense that you would still love to meet, or is it very much a don't meet your heroes as much as possible?
Yeah, there was one. We tried to get David Attenborough for the new album twice. I sent him a letter. He actually replied to me on a handwritten letter saying that I don't do this kind of stuff anymore, but all the best with your new album. And he was really nice and polite. And I thought, damn, but how cool is it that he actually replied? And then we actually tried again and never heard from him again. But if there is one person, that would be him,
Hmm.
the most famous voice in the world.
Well, now Yesterwind is coming out in a month or so, so I would say, what is your biggest hope that people will take away from the album? Like, is there any big message you'd like to pass along to the world with it?
Yes, there is. It's a thematic album about time, memories, and evanescence about the mortality of human life. And without going too deep into the themes, because I want listeners to discover the stories themselves and build their own stories around those stories. That's vital. But if there is one message that I would like people to find from this album, is that be grateful that you are in existence and make the very best out of the few decades you have in the sun.
Well, then, to wrap up, I don't like to ask people for last words because people never know what to say, so I prefer to ask that if you could make the world a better place by sharing a lesson that you've learned on your own journey, what would that be?
I have to give you the same answer that I just give. Just be grateful for every single day that you're alive. Try to do something meaningful. Find love. Try to be loved. And life is beautiful. You don't need anything supernatural to make life really meaningful and lovely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for meeting with me here. This has been very lovely, and best of luck with all of your interviews coming up and the album release. And thank you again.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.